important to this conversation was I was asking myself the wrong question. Right. It wasn't just what I should eat. If somebody would tell me what I should eat, all my problems we solve, that isn't the case. What I've found throughout, my research, through all the work that I've done, is that we humans approach food differently than every other animal on the planet. And it's a long story. We dove into it a little bit before an earlier podcast. But the reality is, for humans, we have to address two questions at the same time. One is what we should be eating, and it's very important. And that's the question that everybody's addressing. And the other question, which is, I think, what's unique about, at some level, about my approach, is how we should be eating. And this doesn't just mean when, like intermittent fasting or, those sorts of things, which are all very, very important conversations. What I'm talking about is the technological input required to transform raw materials, almost every ingredient to any food that we eat, into the safest and most nourishing form possible. So I go through there. I become an athlete. I lose a bunch of weight because I'm working out so hard. I'm still eating a terrible diet. Then when I stop becoming a college athlete, all the weight pours back on. And that's when I really experienced the worst health of my life in my 20s and my 30s. And it wasn't until I really just put together all of my anthropological and archaeological research with my love for food and my desire to live this healthier life that I really started to get the answers that I was looking for. And one of the things that I found is that there's a whole bunch of incredible gems in the archaeological record, information that we can use to really create a foundation for understanding what real, true human health is. But also, there's a lot of holes in the archaeological record, and to patch those holes and to fill some of those gaps and actually bring archaeology to life, I found that traveling and working with indigenous and traditional groups in different parts of the world, like you mentioned earlier, has really, made all the work that I'm doing, like I meant, to come to life and make it more meaningful. So now my family has two entities. We have a nonprofit, like you mentioned, the Eastern Shore Food Lab, which is focused on continuing that research. And I have some exciting things about that I'd love to share with you later. Outreach and also education. So anything from blog posts to the classes that we teach are, fall under that. And then we also realize that even though we're passionate about empowering people to learn how to cook for themselves and transform raw materials into the most nourishing forms for their family, we realize that there is a need also to create that food itself. So we have a restaurant called modernstoneagekitchen, which is where we put it into practice. And I will tell you, we started that about 1.5 years ago. Well, it sort of started earlier. My daughter started a sourdough bread company, and it turned into this about 1.5 years ago. And now we have 19 people working for us, and we are creating amazing food. And we have people traveling from all over the country. In fact, in some cases, people from other countries have even come to visit. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to create here.
That's incredible. I didn't realize you had that many employees.
We've been expanding. Here's the crazy thing. The town that we live in, Chestertown, Maryland, is a super cute, historic, awesome town on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. If you were to tell me, listen, here's some money, go start this business, it sounds great, where would you put it? I wouldn't have put it here. Like I wouldn't, there's so many things working against creating a restaurant like what we've created. I mean, the man and woman power needed to create the food that we're creating is unbelievable. So I would have thought somewhere where a bunch of hip 20-something-year-olds that are really into health and would be the place to put this. And just because of the circumstances that led to its creation, we're here in Chestertown, Maryland, and here it is booming. We literally can't keep up. It's fantastic. So so many people told me years ago, you're never going to be able to keep up cooking like you do for your family, and we were able to do it. And now we've taken the next step, and not only are we creating that food for the family, we're creating that food for the community. And there are no two ingredients put together outside of our walls. So here, real quick, just for people listening, we use ancestral and traditional approaches to food to transform raw ingredients into their safest and most nourishing forms possible. Fermentation is at the core of almost everything that we do. Any grains or flours that we have go through a full, wild, long fermented sourdough process. Any maize we have is nixtamalized. We have a strong stance. We don't use any industrial nut and seed oils. We don't use any refined sugars. Our dairy is fermented, and the list goes on and on. Those are the things that we stand on to create the food that we're creating, and it is economically viable. I mean, we're not, we're still, very careful and cautious about money here for sure. But the fact that not only is it working, but we've grown and have been able to employ more people is really, really exciting.
You should be very, very proud of that. That to me makes me feel so optimistic that maybe the pendulum is swinging. Like the pendulum that went so hard the other way towards the food pyramid and made everybody sick and on medications and not able to enjoy their lives. You just wonder, like, is that going to cause this like swell that's going to finally go back the other direction, back in the way that we evolved? That makes me so happy. And I just want to point out here, since you've been around the world, you've taken a look archaeologically at history, you've also seen up close these indigenous peoples, people that have lived, the way we lived and understanding history. Were these people suffering? Like, do they have awful lives out in the sticks? Now, since we farmed over all the best places, they're in the worst places in the world, least viable for us to, farm over and shove Bibles down their throats. Like, are humans designed just to get by?
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many times somebody asks me about working with these people, and our vision is, they're hunter-gatherers, they're nomadic pastoralists, whatever they're doing, they're living in these amazing environments and then just crushing it. At some level, they're still crushing it in many ways, but they're living in these marginal environments. All the best land in this world are covered in been taken up by the modern industrial world. I mean, the cities are in places where ancient civilizations were, which were put in places where ancient hunter-gatherers were, because they were the best places to be. So the people that I'm working with are in many ways living lives that are very similar to the way they've been living for a very, very long time. But in most cases, they're doing it in places where they wouldn't have chose to be. They've been pushed there in very marginal environments. And I will tell you, there's a couple of standards for all the people that my family and I have been with, and all the work we've done with them. Number one, it's the diversity is the standard, right? Everybody does something a little bit different, right? But as far as the things that really are the same, true, just soul warming happiness is, what it truly means to be human is what we get from these people. My family has been taken into some of these places, which, it's almost impossible to even get to, and they've been welcomed into the homes there, and homes of people that are living in a 1-bedroom house, and give us, I've been around people who don't have access to all the materials that they wish they could, usually for economic reasons, that literally have the opportunity to eat meat once a week, that saved it for when me and my family came to share it with us. I mean, that's the kind of level, and never have we felt unsafe. Never. It's just this love and camaraderie and humanness that is just oozing. I mean, I don't even know. I just, when I think of the experiences, it's always, the flashes in my head of the memories are always about hugging and smiling and laughing and sharing incredible food and stories. And that's what it's been, and that's what I hope it continues to be. But yeah, that's exactly what it was.
That's amazing. You mentioned Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and listening to your episode that you did on his podcast, described being in Mongolia and the couple that you were with and making a rope, like the strength, the dexterity, the knowledge, the wisdom. Like it's so interesting to live in this modern world and try to incorporate some of those things. And a lot of that is food. A lot of that is our nutrition. And when I steal your line and tell it to somebody, when I tell it to one of my clients that we are not really designed to eat most, if any, of the food that we actually consume, that really blows people's minds. And people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? And you start to describe like if I divide this into plant foods and animal foods, you're not really designed to do either one. You're designed to use technologies to make them safe for you to consume. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So first off, for everybody that hasn't listened to any of the earlier podcasts, as far as technology is concerned, technology is required. Some technological input is required for almost every single food that we eat at some level. And we've been inserting technology, creating technologies to transform raw materials in our diets for at least 3.3 million years. 3.3 to 3.4 is the earliest we have evidence for right now. And at that time, they were very simple stone tools that were created and used, but don't be fooled by the simplicity of the tool. It is a powerful tool. The ability to create a razor sharp, durable edge, something that's sharper and more durable than anything we have on our body, immediately transformed our relationship with everything around us. We could now butcher and scrape and cut and saw and do all those things that we didn't have the ability to do before. Now, for most of us, that doesn't maybe mean a whole lot, but imagine if I ripped away all of your scissors, all of your knives, all of your razor blades, all of your razors, anything that we use to cut anything, and said, do something. You couldn't do anything. Like you literally couldn't do anything. And we live in a world where most of the things are already cut for us. So transformative technologies like stone tools, fermentation, fire, hunting, nishtamalization, and the ability to create pottery and put it on top of a fire, all those sorts of things transformed our relationship with the environment and our relationship with food. If the other example that I usually give is, okay, imagine if I stripped you down completely naked and threw you in the middle of the woods wherever you live. For most people listening, especially this time of the year, I know you and I were chatting real quick before we got on this. You have what, 50 inches of snow this year where you live.
Almost
It's
500 in the mountains.
What's almost okay? 100
Almost
in the
500 in the mountains.
I'm here on the eastern shore of Maryland. We've seen a few flurries, but it's freezing cold. I was sitting in a goose blind all day this morning, and I was freezing, and I had like 7 layers of clothes on. It is very humbling immediately, because most of us would die from exposure, right, if that was the case. So number one, that tells us that we require technologies to live in most of the places. This isn't equatorial Africa, right? This is other parts of the world. So we need technologies to even make it because of exposure. But even if it was the middle of the summer wherever you live, and it was nice, and I say, okay, now go eat. Okay, great. There's wild plants, and maybe I can get a rat or something like that. But the reality is, any one of us, and I don't care how great your survival skills are, I don't care if you could identify every plant in front of you and you knew the behavior patterns of every animal that was in the woods with you, the reality is you would die of starvation. The human body, over millions of years of evolutionary changes that were supported by technological innovations that transformed our diets, we created bodies that require nutrition that we just can't get on our own. Not with our fingernails, our eyes, our muscles, our speed or lack of speed. We just can't access the materials. And even if we could access all the raw materials with any technology, which we can't, but even if we could, our digestive tracts are incredibly weak. We haven't had to rely solely on our digestive tracts to transform a raw material into nutrition for our bodies for over 3 million years. So we require these technological inputs. Many of us don't think about it that way, but if you just think about the technologies you use today, from the moment you got up to the moment you're listening to this podcast, I mean, how many technologies did you use? From a knife to a Vitamix, to a stove, to a microwave, to the coffee machine. I mean, all of these things are technological inputs.